Fair warning, there's going to be a whole lot of gushing in this review. Hello, welcome back to Seldomly Often. I'm Daniel. Today we're talking fragrances, and this is a practical review of Frederic Malle's Portrait of a Lady. These reviews are for fragrances I have a lot of experience with, multiple wears in many situations, and are meant to give you a general idea of what it feels to wear the fragrance. As per usual, I do a lot of research before buying fragrances, but I don't really like to go into details about notes and accords, as I don't really feel that they benefit the end user. I'd rather talk about the wear experience as a whole. Alright, here we are, finally talking about Portrait of a Lady by Frederic Malle. Spoiler, and I'll touch upon that in a bit, Portrait of a Lady, to me, is a perfect fragrance. But wait, let's back up a little bit. Before that, let's talk about Frederic Malle as a house. Frederic Malle is a fragrance house that I've discovered a little bit later down the road. I initially snobbed it a lot because, for various reasons, I mean, it has this weird elitist aura around it, which I really don't dig. It also is a French perfumery house, which I wasn't really a fan of and I didn't really understand. I was still into the wow factor of fragrances. And in general, the prices were really high and the bottle designs were sort of bland, and this was all, again, in my early stages of the perfume journey, so I just pushed it aside, not interested. Something inside me, though, was telling me that Portrait of a Lady could be a fragrance that I really liked. And I looked into it, I looked into buying it, but the thing about Frederic Malle, and specifically Portrait of a Lady and some other fragrances from Frederic Malle, namely one that I'm still searching for, Promise, is that they're very difficult to find at discounted prices. You have to always nearly pay retail for them. And while making these evaluations, I already had spent more on fragrance than the Frederic Malle. But I don't know why, in my head there's something about paying full retail, especially when you're used to paying discounted prices, that really didn't work out for me. And I kept saying to myself, wait it out, wait until you get a bargain, and eventually you'll get it. Ultimately, I ended up paying full retail price, and you know what? This is one of the fragrance purchases I'll never regret. Portrait of a Lady is a masterpiece from the master perfumer Dominique Ropion. It's actually the perfume that really got me into Dominique Ropion, and I started exploring everything else he made. To me, Dominique Ropion can basically do no harm, and it all sparked from this fragrance. This is a truly magical fragrance. And despite being marketed by the brand itself as a women's fragrance, this is actually really unisex. This to me is like the perfect unisex fragrance, and it's a really difficult thing to pull off, especially when you're talking about more perfumey type fragrances. It's easy to pull off for something like the Orto Parisi, because they're so abstract and so narrative that they're basically meant for no one. But when you're talking about a little bit more perfumey fragrances, it's difficult to strike that perfect balance in the middle. And if you're afraid of rose, don't be. This is one of the easiest masculine rose to wear. And on my skin specifically, it comes off as very manly, very dusty, very woody, and very dark. This is one of the most elegant, simple, complex fragrances out there that is still mass appealing and just very approachable. It's almost magical, and its special feature is almost not having a special feature, as crazy as that sounds. Before we break down the scent profile, as usual, we talk about the presentation. Here, it's almost impossible not to talk about Frederic Malle as a brand, because the presentation is all about Frederic Malle, and the brand is plastered all over the place. So I mentioned that I initially was a little bit snobby towards the brand, and I totally understand my point of view at the time. Frederic Malle is a brand that is, I would say, easy to hate, just because it's like so elitist. And even the box itself is very self-celebratory. Now, down the road, I got to understand the brand, and I got to understand the concept behind the brand, and I think it's really cool. Frederic Malle, he basically gave a blank sheet to master perfumers to make whatever they wanted, really. And all of the Frederic Malle fragrances clearly showcase the perfumer as a highlight for the fragrance. That's amazing in my opinion, and it's one of the reasons why I tend to dislike Xerjov's approach. Many of the Xerjov perfumes are anonymous, and it's really hard to find who actually made the thing. And that sort of approach makes a house pass as selfish and not interested in the art of perfumery. So yeah, already from the box, you get the Frederic Malle colors, you get a black and red color scheme with black and white portraits of the perfumer itself. It's a fairly simple, modern approach that has been copied a lot. I recently reviewed Matière Première, which is completely different looking, but heavily inspired by the minimalist approach by Frederic Malle. I think they pulled the whole look and feel better, especially because they cost a fraction of what the Frederic Malle fragrances cost. Back to the bottle though, it all starts off with the cap. The cap is plastic, it's well made, it's relatively elegant. Again, copied by matière première. It works well. It has this Frederic Malle engraving on the top. It's just functional, really. The atomizer is quite good and it sprays a remarkable amount of liquid. I think that the atomizer itself is one of the reasons why people get a ton of projection for this, because involuntarily you end up spraying a ton of fragrance on you. The only gripe I have with the atomizer is that the little atomizer itself sits very high on top of the bottle, so it tends to rock back and forth, and sometimes you get some mist sprays. The cap clicks back into place firmly. The bottle itself is well made. The labeling is this paper-like material that really scuffs easily. This whole bottle really shows some wear and tear. I've had this for a while, but you can really tell, and I try to baby my fragrances as much as possible. I think Frederic Malle designed their look around the 100 ml bottle. I think that they look way better. The label is way more balanced, but hey, they're very expensive, so that's why I ended up with a 50 ml, which is this. Overall presentation, it's iconic, it's copied, it's timeless, but ultimately I think it's kind of mid, meaning that the materials and everything used, it doesn't really fit the price of the product itself. But I guess with Frederic Malle, it's all about the scent, and for that, we dive into the scent profile. I've been wearing Portrait of a Lady a lot recently, and that's due to the fact that I've been on my quest to find the ultimate rose fragrance to complement Portrait of a Lady and my other favorite rose fragrance, which is Noir de Noir. Spoiler, and I guess this is a spoiler-dense episode, I found that fragrance and I'll be talking about that soon. I just need to get some wears in and a good idea of what it is. But back to Portrait of a Lady. This fragrance is very unique, and it's unique in the way it wears. It has a very linear wear throughout its duration, and by all means, this is a long-lasting fragrance. You get 10 hours plus here. But the beauty of this doesn't really lie in the transitioning between the opening and the dry down, but rather in the incredible complexity and 3D effect of this fragrance itself. You can definitely smell and pick out all the ingredients. It creates this incredibly vivid image in your mind, but at the same time, it sort of like blends it all together to give you an impression of a fragrance. The first thing you smell from the very top is obviously rose, and the rose in here is this beautiful velvety red rose. It's not necessarily jammy, but it definitely has some fruity aspects combined with that velvety dustiness. The other thing you pick up in the opening is this black currant note, and black currant has a fruity aspect to it, but it also has an acidic, sort of a pissy ammonia type scent. Now, on my skin, the pissy acidity does not really come through. I guess my skin really just eats that up. And on me, this fragrance is incredibly smooth from the get-go and very, very pleasing, straight up from the opening. I mentioned that this fragrance does not transition all that much, but what happens is that the top fruity notes of the rose and that acidic note from the black currant sort of fade off. And in the deep dry down, especially before this fragrance disappears completely, what you're left is with a very dry, woody, earthy type of scent profile. And the base of this fragrance is where actually everything shines, in my opinion, because the patchouli note in here sort of like rides that perfect line between being very earthy, very dark chocolatey, and dusty at the same time. So you get this image which is, it can be like the undergrowth of a forest, it can be like the inside of a log cabin, while also giving you this image of like dark chocolate shavings. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's what makes this fragrance so unique. And talking about the complexity, here's where the fragrance really shines. It's so 3D, it's so deep, you can really like dig your head into this fragrance. The various facets of each ingredient are incredibly apparent, and this fragrance smells so high quality. When I mentioned at the start of the video that this to me is a perfect fragrance, I truly meant that. But what I meant is that this is a fragrance that perfectly balances pretty much everything. It balances simplicity and elegance with uniqueness and niche factor. It balances high quality with approachability. It balances the bright and the fresh notes with its darker ones. This fragrance wears remarkably light for what it is. It sort of sits in the mid, and you can wear this pretty much in every season, and I wear this in every season. I wore this today, which was very hot here, and it worked perfectly fine. To me, this is an absolute masterpiece just because it's so difficult to strike that perfect balance of everything. If you tend to associate rose fragrances to like rose water and grandma scents, don't, because this is a very different. The rose aspect here is very strong, but I would not classify this as a rose-forward fragrance. The complexity of this whole concoction is such that, yes, you can easily pick out the rose, but the supporting ingredients are just as important in creating this atmosphere of dark gothicness. The perfection aspect of this fragrance really extends to the projection and longevity and the way it wears. The longevity, as I mentioned, is 10 hours plus. You can wear this in the morning and smell it in the evening easily. The projection itself is absolutely gorgeous for the first half of the wear. In the second half, it becomes a little bit more of a skin scent, but still very noticeable. It's beautiful. It's really hard to overspray this thing just because the scent is so beautiful and elegant that I really can't see anyone getting upset about smelling this in the air. As mentioned, the seasonal versatility is also incredibly high. And yes, the summers here are not too hot, but if you wear this in a climatized environment, you can definitely wear this year-round. The high elegance factor for this would make you think that this is a little bit more of an evening scent and more dressed up type of scent. And yes, this scent does definitely shine in those situations, but this is actually remarkably casual friendly. I'm not saying that you should wear this to the gym or with sweats at the supermarket, but it's very, very usable in many types of environments. All these factors combined with the fact that this is also incredibly unisex, as I talked about before, makes this fragrance a true unicorn in versatility and wearability. The only limiting aspect in versatility, I would say, it's age. I just can't picture late teens and early adults really enjoying this. Not because it lacks the wow factor, because this is probably one of the most wow-inducing fragrances I've ever smelled, but because it's a little bit more of a refined type of fragrance and you need to be a little bit more experienced to really appreciate this. I can totally see how many people make this their ultimate signature scent. This fragrance is not fatiguing at all. I can wear this day after day after day, and I'm a person who changes fragrances pretty much every day, and I'm never fatigued. If anything, like Beach Hut Man, this is one of those fragrances that I'm almost scared to wear too much just because I'm scared to spoil the effect on myself. I think that overall Frederic Malle as a brand is absolutely amazing. I'm saddened that Frederic Malle himself stepped away, but I totally get it. He built a beautiful brand with a huge name and he decided to sell it for a profit. It's fine. Unfortunately though, it's pretty inevitable that the brand will take a deep dive, and it's my mission to really sample all the classics before that happens. And yeah, as I mentioned, this would be a gush fest. I really can't complain about anything about this fragrance. It's truly, to me, perfect. And despite me praising it like there's no tomorrow, I wouldn't necessarily put this fragrance as my favorite. It's definitely in my top 10. Gun to my head, if I were to choose a signature scent for the rest of my life, this would be high up there. This and probably Reflection 45 from Amouage. To close this off, even though I think that this is a 10 out of 10, I would strongly advise to sample this first before purchase. This might not be for you, but if you are into that dark, earthy, woody rose, this might be actually the perfect fragrance for you, and it might be your next signature scent. This bottle will never leave my collection, and I cherish every time I wear it. The first time I smell this fragrance is still ingrained in my head. I sort of had this epiphany moment where I almost discovered fragrance and perfumery for the first time in my life. It's a beautiful experience, and I highly recommend it to everyone. If you like this type of content and if you like my approach to videos, feel free to subscribe. It's always massively appreciated and it helps the channel. If you want to interact with me, feel free to leave a comment, suggestion, opinion, or anything else down below. I always respond and I always keep the conversation going. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for your time. Another one down. This one here was an absolute banger. Until next time, until the next review, see ya and cheers.